The rain was a cold, insistent drizzle, turning the city's gray streets into a shimmering, oil-slicked mirror. Detective Jake Carter, a man whose face was a roadmap of a dozen sleepless nights, stood under a tattered police tent, the yellow tape a stark contrast to the deepening gloom. He felt the familiar, weary ache in his bones. This was his world. The wet cement, the flashing blue and red lights, the hushed, grim faces of his fellow officers. The scene was a public library, but not the bustling central branch. This was a quiet, forgotten annex dedicated to the city's history. The victim, Dr. Alistair Finch, a well-regarded urban historian, was found by a janitor early that morning. He was seated at a large oak desk, a leather-bound folio open before him, as if he had simply fallen asleep. His glasses were still perched on the bridge of his nose, and the small brass reading lamp cast a warm, tranquil glow on his face. The tranquility was a lie. "No signs of forced entry, Detective," reported Officer Miller, his breath a puff of white in the cold air. Janitor had his own key. "Found the victim at 6:15. Jake nodded, stepping into the quiet library. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and something else. Something subtly metallic and sweet, like a mix of copper and petrichor. He knelt beside the body, careful to avoid disturbing anything. Dr. Finch looked utterly at peace, a gentle scholar in his final moments. But Jake had been doing this for 20 years. And he knew peace was a facade. He ran a gloved hand along the man's arm, checking for rigor mortis. The body was still pliable, indicating death had occurred within the last few hours. It was then he saw it. A small, almost imperceptible mark on the side of Dr. Finch's neck, just below the jawline. It wasn't a cut, or a bullet wound, or a puncture from a knife. It was a perfectly round, clean-edged hole, no bigger than the tip of a pencil. There was no blood, no swelling, no sign of trauma. It was as if a tiny, precise cylinder had been plunged into his flesh and then retracted. He called for Dr. Evelyn Reed, the city's chief medical examiner. Evelyn was a force of nature, a brilliant pathologist, who saw the truth in the dead with a clarity that often unnerved Jake. He trusted her more than anyone else on the force. She arrived a half-hour later, her face grim. She knelt, her gloved fingers tracing the strange mark on Dr. Finch's neck. "That's unusual," she murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. She took a close look at the surrounding skin. No bruising, no tearing of the tissue, no residual trace of a weapon. "It's a clean hole, Jake, almost surgical. Too clean for anything I've ever seen." The crime scene yielded nothing more. There were no fingerprints on the folio, no signs of a struggle. Security footage from the outside of the building showed nothing but the steady rain. The motive was a ghost. Dr. Finch was a widower with no known enemies. He was a pillar of the historical society, a kind and quiet man who spent his days cataloging dusty archives. The case went cold for 2 weeks. Jake felt the frustration gnawing at him. He revisited the library, walked the same paths, interviewed the same silent witnesses, the books and the portraits of long-dead founders. He kept coming back to that small, perfect hole in the victim's neck. It was a key, but he didn't have the lock. Then, a second body was found. The victim was a young archivist named Marcus Klein, a protege of Dr. Finch. He was found in his small apartment, the scene a mirror of the first seated at his computer, a serene expression on his face, and a single, flawless, pencil-sized hole in his neck. This time, Evelyn was on site. She ran her hand over the young man's skin. "It's the same," she said, her voice a low, horrified whisper. "Exactly the same. No bruising, no blood." "Motive?" Jake asked, his mind reeling. They were both historians. They worked together. A grudge, a rivalry. Evelyn shook her head. "This isn't about rivalry, Jake. This is about something else." The autopsy report on Dr. Finch had been inconclusive. Cause of death was ruled heart failure, but Evelyn had a gut feeling it was wrong. She had taken extensive samples, but had found nothing. Now, with a second victim, she had a fresh chance. She worked through the night, her mind a furious storm of possibilities. She was looking for a needle in a haystack, a clue that wasn't meant to be found. As the sun began to rise, she found it. She was examining the young archivist's body, her scalpel a precise extension of her hand, when she noticed something strange. The internal organs, while healthy, had a slight, almost imperceptible translucence to them. She cut deeper, and as she did, a soft, ethereal light emanated from within the abdominal cavity. She gasped, a sound of pure shock and disbelief. She sawed open the rib cage. The heart was gone, completely. Not cut out, or torn out, but vanished. In its place, where the heart should have been, was a bizarre, luminous structure. It was a network of delicate, translucent filaments, woven together in a complex, crystalline lattice. The filaments pulsed with a soft, bioluminescent glow, a phosphorescent green that seemed to hum with an unnatural energy. She touched it with a gloved finger, and the light pulsed brighter, as if in response. She recoiled in horror. It was not dead tissue. It was a living, growing thing. A symbiotic organism, a grotesque, beautiful parasite that had replaced the victim's heart. She called Jake immediately. He arrived at the morgue, his face pale with fatigue. Evelyn led him to the gurney, and pulled back the sheet. The sight was enough to make him feel the bile rise in his throat. "I've never seen anything like this," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "It's not a parasite. It's a replacement. A bioengineered, living organ. It's made of a type of fungus, Jake. A kind of cordyceps. It's growing inside him." "How?" Jake asked, his voice a low growl of disbelief. "How did they get it in there?" Evelyn pointed to the tiny, round hole in the young man's neck. "That's not a wound, Jake. It's a delivery system. The hole is so small, so precise, it was likely an injection. A single spore, a single filament, was plunged into his vascular system, where it grew and spread, consuming his vital organs one by one. And when it reached the heart, it didn't kill him. It replaced it. It took over." The tranquil look on their faces, Jake said, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. They weren't sleeping, they were at peace. The fungus, it must have released a toxin, an opiate. It's like a macabre, grotesque form of life support. It's what allowed them to live long enough for the heart to be replaced. And when the process was complete, the fungus simply stopped. The victims didn't die of heart failure. They died when their new heart ceased to function. Evelyn's face was ashen. "It's not just the heart, Jake. I found traces of the filaments in his brain. It was a systemic takeover. This is not a human being. This is a monster. A collector? He's harvesting their bodies for his own grotesque, bioengineered garden. He's not killing them. He's transforming them. The fear that Jake felt was not the fear of a murderer. It was the primal, cold horror of a world turned upside down. They were no longer hunting a man. They were hunting a thing, a creature that could do this. A creature that saw human life not as something to be taken, but as something to be converted. Jake returned to the library, his mind racing. He looked at the books, the archives, the old maps that Dr. Finch and Marcus Klein had been studying. The victims had something in common, something more than their profession. Their work was all related to the city's buried history. The old forgotten places, abandoned subway lines, ancient water cisterns, the labyrinthine network of steam tunnels, and catacombs that ran like a hidden, necrotic nervous system beneath the city. He found a marked map in Dr. Finch's study, a place he had overlooked before. It showed a section of the city's oldest sewage system, a network of tunnels long sealed off. On the map, a single handwritten note was scribbled. "Finch, this is it. The hidden chamber, the source." The city had a secret, and the killer was that secret, come to life. Jake and Evelyn, with a small team of heavily armed tactical officers, descended into the dark. The entrance was a sealed manhole cover in a forgotten alleyway behind a derelict warehouse. The air was damp and smelled of mold and stagnant water. They flicked on their flashlights, and the beams cut through the gloom, revealing a terrifying alien world. The walls were not of brick or stone. They were covered in a thick, fungal growth, a slimy, phosphorescent moss that clung to every surface. The air was thick with spores, and the sound of their footsteps echoed in the silent, oppressive darkness. As they walked deeper, the fungus began to glow, a soft, ethereal green, illuminating the tunnels in an unearthly light. It was a living, breathing ecosystem, a single, interconnected being. They moved through the tunnels for what felt like hours, their flashlights a testament to their sanity in this place of madness. They came to a large, circular chamber. In the center, a gigantic, pulsating network of filaments rose from a pool of dark, oily water. It was the source, the heart of the fungal horror. It pulsed with the same green light that had illuminated the victims' bodies, and standing before it, a figure. It was tall and slender, its skin a pale, fungal white, with a network of glowing green veins visible just beneath the surface. It was a humanoid shape, but it was not human. It was a being of bone, flesh, and fungi. Its eyes were two black, unblinking voids, and in its hands it held a small, delicate glass vial filled with a single, glowing spore. "It's here," Jake whispered into his radio, his voice thick with a mix of fear and awe. The creature turned its head slowly, its face a serene, mask-like blank. It didn't have a mouth or a nose, just smooth contours and those terrifying black eyes. It held the vial out to them, a silent, mocking gesture. "It's a warning," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "It's showing us what it is, what it does." The creature began to move, not walking, but gliding, its fungal feet making no sound on the damp floor. It was faster than a human, unnaturally so, a blur of motion in the green light. The tactical team opened fire. The bullets ripped through the creature's body, but there was no blood, no screams. The holes in its body simply healed, the fungal tissue closing over the wounds with an almost impossible speed. "It's not flesh," Jake screamed. "Don't shoot it. We can't kill it." He raised his own gun, but hesitated. He was trained to kill men. He was not trained to kill a thing. He saw the creature glide towards him, its black eyes unblinking, its glowing hand reaching for his neck. He felt a profound, bone-deep terror. It was Evelyn who saved him. She had a gas canister, a powerful sedative that was used to tranquilize large animals. She aimed it at the creature's chest and pressed the trigger. The gas sprayed, a silent, white mist in the green light. The creature faltered, its movements slowing. The glow in its veins dimmed. It looked at Evelyn, a flicker of something in its black eyes. Not fear, but confusion. It collapsed, its fungal body hitting the damp floor with a soft, hollow thud. The glow in its veins faded completely, and it became a pale, lifeless thing. The pool of fungal life in the center of the chamber pulsed once, twice, and then went dark. The silence was absolute. The rest was a blur. They managed to secure the creature's body. They discovered that it wasn't just a creature, it was a host. The fungus was a symbiotic life form that had taken over the body of a human being. The original person was still there, but they were no longer in control. They were a puppet, a vessel. The creature was a grotesque, beautiful, and utterly horrifying fusion of two distinct life forms, the ultimate parasite. The police had no protocol for a monster. The FBI was called in, then the CDC, and then a shadowy, unnamed government agency that swept in and took control of the entire site. They took the creature, the fungal pool, the lab in the library, and the two bodies of the victims. They took every scrap of evidence, every photograph, every testimony. They told Jake and Evelyn that the case was closed, and that they were to never speak of what they had seen. Jake and Evelyn, sitting in a sterile, white room, stared at each other. They had followed the clues. They had found the secret. And in doing so, they had stumbled upon a truth that the world was not ready for. The killer was not a man. The killer was a monster. A horrifying, beautiful thing that lived in the dark spaces beneath the city. The case was closed, but the real mystery had just begun. For Jake, the memory of that creature, its black eyes, its serene, emotionless face, would haunt his dreams forever. He had looked into the face of a monster, and it was not a monster of rage or madness. It was a monster of a new kind, a monster of grotesque, serene, and terrifying purpose. A creature that saw the world not as a home, but as a garden to be cultivated, a harvest to be reaped. And in the dark heart of the city, he knew it was still growing.